mean, everybody knows me as Peg.
Oh, Peg. Okay, well, I can say AKA Peg. What's up, everybody? It's your girl Sequoia Blue. We are back in here with another episode. It is Friday. We got a special guest. We got Phantom Electric Ghost, AKA Peg. He has his own podcast, which is amazing. I was actually on there and I talked about my musical journey, and we had a really good time. And also, I like his eclectic style. He has some cool music. So, Phantom, go into that journey of how you like when did you start doing music and when did you
Yeah.
determine your genre and all that good stuff?
Well, I'm 55 years old. I've been a musician since I was 17. I was in high school with my brother who played guitar, and we had a band. We called it NXT Next, and we were influenced by like everything. We were into like it's like 1979, 1980, and we were listening to like Joy Division, New Order. It later came out of Joy Division. We are listening to punk music, Clash, the Sex Pistols, like everything. Everything coming out of CBGBs. And so I was very much into like everything from jazz,
Wow.
Sun Ra, Stevie Wonder, punk, Johnny Cash. It's like everything. In my house, my brother was 7 years older than me, so he was listening to Zeppelin. My mom was listening to the Carpenters, and my dad was listening to James Brown and Motown. So I was getting
Wow.
all different types of music, and I have an appreciation for pretty much all of it. So
Wow.
after my bands broke up and I went to college at
Mhm.
Bowdoin College, an IT guy, my day job, but I always kept my music going. And you can see, like, this is my expansive studio.
Yeah, I was like, this is impressive. Like, and you keep it old school too. You keep your what do they call it? Because I'm like,
Hardware synth, kind of
okay,
DAWless recording. I'm
yes.
a hardware synthesis. And what that means is I don't yeah, I have an Akai Force. It's like an MPC, right? I've got some modern tech that's more like using Ableton Live clip-based stuff. But I am
Mm.
kind of an old school guy. Back in the day, back in the 80s, we used reel-to-reels and Tascams, and I had like Casio CZ101s and early Roland D5s. And I've continued to do that. I have Junos, I have 3 Moogs, I have a bunch of like Euro racks and multi-tracks, multiple multi-track recorders. I like to capture things directly into multi-tracks that are right near my synths. And it kind of
Mm.
came from this idea of being in those bands back in the 80s, and we didn't have computers. And I liked when I got my first Tascam or Fostex, I liked the fact that I had to play the song until I actually learned it.
Oh, wow.
I actually had to track it, and by the time I was done, I was putting the bass line in, putting the drums in, putting everything in. I would know the whole song by the time I was
Wow.
done, and
That's
I
great.
still like to record that way.
Yeah, you know what? You gotta go with what works. Like, I mean, because you said you feel more like it's easier for you to create using the hardware versus the DAW, the Logic and all
Yeah,
those
yeah.
popular softwares, huh?
Well, my consolation for that is I use my Akai Force, and it actually will it's like a DAW-less DAW. So, the Akai Force is a machine that has a bunch of pads, and it basically has a bunch of plugins built into it, and right now I've got, like, all kinds of, like, old school plugins in it. I got, like, ARP 2600s and Odysseys and, Mellotrons and stuff. But I can write music totally inside of that, but it creates a clip-based Ableton DAW-like thing that I can actually work with other people if they need to. When I run into a producer that works with that stuff, then I'll use my Akai Force to do that. But I like to do WAV files, just WAV files off of my Zoom R20s and stuff. Just
Wow.
because like what I got into the Ghost, actually, I was on SoundCloud in 2008, and I was doing what I called expansive sound experiments, or sound paintings, and it didn't have any vocals. And then one day, in 2008, I got a Roland, Juno, and then in 2016, I got a
Oh,
JDXI. Yeah, I
wait a
got
minute, you was
a
in Juno, the movie?
yeah, I have a Juno. That's with the big synth back there. One on the top,
Oh!
one on the bottom is the Juno. On that three-tier thing, that's the Juno right there. But
Oh, I thought you thought the Juno the movie. I was like, "Wait a minute, you're acting
oh,
too? Okay."
no, 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 not the movie.
I was like, "Wait a minute, did I see him in there?"
No, no, I wish I was in it, but,
That means you could play some music for him.
But, so what I decided I was doing all this, I never really sang in any of the bands I was in. There was always, like,
Mm.
somebody else singing. I would write the songs, and I was, like, the primary songwriter in most of my bands, but I never sang. Until
Oh.
2016, I finally it was, like, reading Keyboard Magazine, I found this Roland called a JDXI, and it had a mic. That was one of the things I liked about it. It had a mic, it had a vocoder, and it had a vocal transformer inside of it. And
Mm.
so to quickly explain that, I'll actually just do it. Is the vocal transformer, when I first used it, I tried using the soprano voice on my male voice, and then I
Mm.
got this. So Josephine Electric showed up, and I was able to do this voice. And I said, wow, like I can actually do this voice in real time. And I was like, wow, I could take a bunch of stuff I was working on and create a female character that's a ghost. And I was
That
working
is
on this
neat.
science fiction story. And I said,
Oh.
hey, what if I could actually take her character and actually make her a member of the band? Like the Gorillas has these fantasy characters, like
Oh,
within the
wow.
Gorillas band. I said, what if I could do that in real time and not just do a cartoon? I could actually do it. And then when I do it live, I wear this mask, and
All
then
right now.
people can't tell that, if I'm male or female, because the ghost could be male or female. And that was the
Yeah.
idea. And so I'm back to normal, but that started the ghost. And before I was doing Josephine, that was Josephine Electric is who I ended up tagging that character. I was only getting like 3,000 plays on SoundCloud. Soon as I
Mm.
started doing that, I jumped to like 30,000 and 70,000 and I'm like 100
Wow.
18,000,
Wow.
and then it's like so it actually, my sound paintings without vocals weren't getting that kind of reach, and at the same
Mm.
time in 2016, I had started doing the podcast, so I had 2 tiers, and I ended up, like, saying, "Well, I'm gonna interview musicians because 'cause I'm a musician and producer, and that's gonna kinda feed back to people saying, 'Well, who's fan of?' And then they check out my music, and it was a good way of doing both, and,
Yes.
that's how it
It is a
happened.
good idea. No, I love it. I love the story. I mean, that's amazing because I was always wondering how did he come up with a phantom electric ghost, but it definitely stands out and in the industry. And what would you say your genre is? Because I listen to your music, and one thing I like about you is that you push the boundaries. It's not something typical, and as well as I push the boundaries myself. So when I listen to you, I was like, oh, it made me feel like, oh, someone else understands the art of this. Like it's not just
Yeah, I
about
mean
yeah.
Yeah, my whole thing was the idea of expansive sound. Like when I first started it, the idea of expansive sound is if I want to channel Johnny Cash, I could. If I want to channel Funkadelic, I can. If I want to do something that's like Yes or like Genesis or Hendrix or Funkadelic, I could go in any direction I want. And so
Mm,
because of that, being a keyboardist, you have a very wide palette if you learn how to play different genres. And I'm like, wow, it's like, why should I just be limited to one thing? So
yeah.
if I feel like doing hip hop based music, I could go that way. If I want to do a trance song, I could do a trance. If I want to do a real like rock type of song, and what I did, all the time, since I started the band, I've been a frustrated guitar player, where I wasn't very
Mm.
good on a guitar, but I found a way to get my Roland, my Juno, to actually combined with my Moogs to actually sound like guitars. And that's one of
Oh.
my key things is the people really think there's a guitar player in the band. It's all keyboards.
Oh, wow, okay.
I don't use guitars at all. And so and people say, "Well, how do you do that?" But I said, "Well, because I always wanted to play guitar, but I'm a better keyboardist than a guitar player, so I found a way to get my sense to channel guitar playing." And so then
Mm.
I can do punk type of stuff, I can do heavy metal, I can do leads, and then I can still put my funk and my drum machines and all that stuff on top of that. So I can go and I can play piano stuff where I just, I can layer it. And I've always
Yeah.
been into, things that are more progressive. My songs are usually longer than 2 minutes. Some go 7, 8, 9, 10, 12 minutes.
And I think it's amazing because you release a new song every week, right?
Yeah, pretty much.
Wow.
Yeah, I write a lot.
Well, see, that's great. I mean, because do you think IT, working in IT, because I also am in IT. I don't know if I told you that, but that's my day job
Oh,
too.
well, that's cool.
And so that's ironic that we're both in tech. But do you feel like tech has helped you in a way, open your mind to experimenting more with music? Because I felt like it did for me.
Yeah, because I've always been on synths, from the start. I was, back in the day, like, I used to go to Guitar Center and look at all these synths I couldn't afford, and then try to get the ones that were broken and fix them, um, to get them. And basically over time, I collected a lot of stuff, and what I found was, as my bands disappeared, my interest in technology actually worked with synths really good because synthesizers are
Mhm.
very technical instruments,
Yeah, I
compared to
could
most
tell.
instruments,
Could
and my synths, I actually do sound design. So what that means is like some people get a keyboard and they just take whatever patch it has, right? My synthesizers can create sounds from scratch, from waveforms. So part of
Wow.
what I do when I start a song, most of my synthesizers I have some sense where okay, I need a piano so it can be a piano. I need strings. Like so, my Juno is a big bank of sounds, like 1,300 sounds in it, but it can
Mm.
change all those sounds. But it can start with like a piano. So if I want to play a piano, I don't have to go create it. All my other synths can take waveforms like square waves, triangles, sine waves, pulse waves, and start from that wave and create something new. No, there's an
Wow.
idea they had to learn. Being tech person is the guy who invented most synthesizers in the U.S. In the beginning of the synth age in the 1950s was Robert Moog, who created the Moog, and
Oh.
he also created the theory behind how you make sounds with the Moog called subtractive synthesis. So subtractive synthesis takes a sound wave and then subtracts from that wave through filters and harmonic manipulation of the signal through envelope generators and all kinds of different tools and actually
Wow.
transforms that into an acoustic instrument or something you never heard. So you can take a square wave and make it into a bass. You could take a triangle wave and make it, like, into a bell. You could take a
Oh, wow.
a sine wave and
Oh.
make it into like, a wood block, and so given certain characteristics of waves, you can blend them, and you can warp them, and you can fold them, and you can do all kinds of things that will get close to real instruments. So it could get
Mm.
close to what a Hammond sounds like or what a Stradivarius sounds like or what a
Man.
sax sounds like, and you go and you build your own instrument, and then I start from there and then work on the songs. And I have drum machines that make my own beats. I have keyboards that become whole drum sets, and I can actually play that whole keyboard like it's a drum set. And the other thing
Mm.
about a synthesizer, when you're a synthesis, is you try to mimic the capability of an instrument, right? So when I play
Mm.
a violin, there are certain behaviors associated with a violin, like you can strum it, you can strike it, you can use the bow, and so
Oh.
synthesizers will try to approximate some of those behaviors,
Oh,
and
neat.
so some controls with pedals and different switches, I can approximate using the bow, I can approximate plucking it, I can do different things, like, when I play a guitar on my Juno, the pitch wheel can go up and down and right to left, and I have different foot pedals.
Mm.
When I go up and down, it will modulate, which will actually sound like feedback. If I go right to left, it will pitch bend. If I take my finger down and slide it down the keyboard, it will sound like I'm sliding down a fretboard. So there's certain
Mm.
behaviors that are built into some of the sounds, like Roland created this thing called supernatural. That so every instrument has behaviors, and they try to match those behaviors. So, like breath on a wind instrument, it can do breath control. You can do like tongue
Oh.
control. You can do all kinds of things. So you can sound. And so, if you're playing a wind instrument, you don't want to play endlessly. You want
Mm.
to play like, okay, yeah, a human being would have to take a breath. So if you're actually going to
Yeah.
play a sax part, you need to think that, oh yeah, I can't just play endlessly, I'd have to take a breath, so I had been a wind instrument player when I started on clarinet and sax, so I kinda know that, but the whole
Mm.
magic of being a synth player is I can go and try to be a guitar player, I can try to be a drummer, I can go and learn how a flute plays and then try to mimic that behavior and that style, and it's fun for me because then you become like, in an orchestra. You're learning, like,
Oh,
every instrument, and you
so
start to
that's
really dive
interesting. So,
dive
like,
into it.
basically, you can kinda it sounds like you can do more stuff with the old school equipment than the Logic and the GarageBand and stuff. It seems like it's easier to even mix with, because I noticed, like, me just learning stuff through GarageBand now, it's like it's cool, but it's like it's almost like you really have to it takes time to learn to be great, to get the beat you want or to get the mix you want. It definitely takes time. But when you describe what you do, it's like you can it's kind of hands-on more so where you can just just click it here and then see, okay, how is this pitch right here, and then pick
Yeah.
this drum. Like you can, it's literally, yeah. I think I'm starting to think old school kind of trumps the new school in a way, because the way that you can, it's just so much more you can do, and it's easier to do. Like it's, especially if you're already
Right.
technical too, but you can
Well, I
actually
like
do
the
more.
yeah. One of the things I like about my old school instruments is they have tons of controls. So if I look at my Moog, it's like 90 different controls sitting on the panel. Right. Now, that could be intimidating if you don't know what it means. Like, but I bought these things and I own them. I've been working with them for like 15 years. So the cool thing about these synthesizers, since they have so many upfront controls, they're not buried in menus, and I don't have to click a mouse. All these things are on the panel. So what we as synthesis say is I can play the controls as part of the instrument, not just the keyboard can I use. Like it's like if you ever think about somebody who plays like a Hammond B3, they got the drawbars and they've got their foot pedals. So they've got a lot of different controls on an organ. Well, synthesizers are beyond that. Synthesizers can have like hundreds of controls on them. And so when I
Mm.
play one, I can actually use any of those controls as part of the performance. And in that way, it's never going to be the same every time I do it, approach it from like knowing what that's going to do to the wave. I can use that in the performance and do all kinds of strange things where portamentos and decrescendos and white noise and different, what folding certain waves will cause certain behaviors. And once you know what something's going to do or an idea of what could happen if you do that, you can use it in your performance and it becomes like something that I have a hard time, like, using some of the more modern stuff that's just kinda, you know, cut and paste and then moving things around, but not really having the control I have of the waveform. I can totally control my sound to such a degree that it's very customizable and it feels like however I feel. So if I go to play, I
Mm.
like being able to have that variability of, however, if I feel like in a Miles Davis mode, I can go there. If I feel like I'm in a Hendrixian mode, I can go there. If I want to play like John Bonham that one day and be on the drums like John Bonham, I can do what I want. And I
Wow.
have
Amazing.
such a big palette that I don't have a lot of restrictions. And then I don't have to depend on software. My
Oh
synths
yeah.
are don't depend on being on the latest version of Windows or iOS.
Oh
I've got
yeah.
synths that will, they're not dependent on that, right? So they will work even if the computer crashed, my modes will still turn on, my Rolands will still turn on. I can
Mhm.
still get them to do what I want. If they did an update, I won't be locked out because the update or I didn't pay for the subscription. Like I don't have to depend on that. These things create sound because that's what they do.
Yeah, that's a good thing to note, because I had to get this hard drive with 2 terabytes in it or whatever, because I was just like, I had no space. I kept running out of space and all this stuff. So I had to do that just in case something happened. I can always have these songs, and I had to figure that out. So that definitely makes sense. Now, do you submit to movies and TV shows as well?
Yeah, I do have some licensing through like Vampire and some other places like through I'm actually a BMI. And I actually got some of my license for music for Twitch. That I had a
Oh,
deal with Twitch. I got a range so gamers can use my music and stuff. So I try to do that. I'm actually in the process. I got about a bunch of songs that are in consideration for projects that have been, that I put out there through different capabilities I've done. But yeah, I submit as much as I can.
that's
But
amazing.
I'm always working on something, I do
Yeah.
have, like, an an example for my latest album, Trash, where you can kinda hear that guitar type of sound I was talking about,
Yeah.
if
Yeah,
you wanna
show
hear
let
that
us
for
hear let
example,
us
so I
hear
can
an
just kinda
example.
yeah, so I'm gonna bring this up, and hopefully it's gonna share the screen, and hopefully we won't have any trouble with it. So I'm gonna bring it up.
Oh,
This
yeah.
is from Trash Wave, and hopefully you see it. I
Not
should be able
yet.
to
It's
bring it
probably
in now,
coming. Oh, it's on the
hopefully.
oh, it's on the 3rd
Um,
screen coming up.
I don't know,
I just had to,
you see it? Did it come in?
yeah, it's like
Yeah,
on an extra 3rd screen. So let me add the
yeah. The 3rd thing's coming up.
3rd.
So if you're
Oh,
able to
there we go. So we see it right
yeah,
here
there
over
it
on
is.
the side. Oh, that's neat. Oh, you there?
Okay, so
Oh, okay.
so
Make sure
I'm
it
gonna
wasn't
make
breaking up.
sure that that does it right. Wait a second. Yeah, can you hear me?
Yep,
Yeah,
I
I
can
just
hear
wanna
you now.
make sure that it's actually gonna play it, but, there's something I gotta check for a second. Um, yeah, let me see if you like, let me leave I'm gonna play it now, tell me if you hear it.
Okay. See.
You hear it?
Yep, I can hear it.
Did you hear that?
Yeah, I heard that.
Okay, I'm gonna play it. This is a song called yeah, the drums. So that is that initial drum is from an analog drum machine from Moog that I created the drums for it. So those drum sounds are
Mm,
actually sounds I created, and then there actually is an analog drum machine from Moog. And then the guitar you're gonna hear is coming from a Roland Juno GI with a Moog Mother 32 piggybacked on it to give a digital signal and an analog signal at the same time to give it more kind of weight. But I'll play
wow.
it right now so you can hear it.
To the dream, I wanna get it and I want it. Up to the dream, I wanna get it and I gotta. Up to the dream, I wanna get it and I gotta. I drink it down like a breath of gin. I lay it down with the best friend in. Up to the dream, I wanna lay it down and I want it. To the brim, I'm gonna drink it down, down. Yeah, laying with a friend in the skin. Then get it out fast. I'm laying with the best friend, and I don't know when I'll see her again. But I'm gonna
Oh, it broke up
do
on you now.
it again.
It's nice.
You
I like the
can
guitar.
see her again. Never seen it again. What a heartache ever meant.
So that's an example of what I was saying. I'll pull it out. But kind of interesting is like I can actually do that live. That's not like a sample. That's not me pulling from some guitar player that played it. I'm actually playing those guitar lines
And this is
on
through
my
the
synthesizer.
Moog on the
And
synthesizer.
when I
Okay.
play live, oh this that well the drums are the Moog, but the guitar is actually a Roland. It's a Roland Juno
Ah,
synthesizer that actually can channel PCM type of synthesis that can replicate a guitar. So Roland has a technology where they try to replicate instruments through synthesis. They don't sample, they actually make their synthesizer try to match a guitar sound. And in that synthesizer, it has
mm.
like 15 types of guitars, like Les Pauls and
Yeah, that
Fenders
was
and
the
all.
bomb. Like, I like the flow of it. I can hear it in the movie, like, someone's dancing to it, and it's just like this vibe of just like this, like, just spinning in the vibe, dancing to it. I mean, it just gives you that vibe, you know? That's why I was like, your music is just amazing because, like I said, it's like we need more people that are just different and pushing the envelope and showing different styles of music, you know? It's exciting.
Well, the thing there is like by the time that Trash Wave is the new album came out February 10th, and that
Oh, wow,
song,
congratulations.
thank you. That from Trash Wave and Come On is kind of a cool thing. Is like for many years I did not like using my male voice. I used Josephine's voice from the beginning of Phantom Electric Ghost from 2016. All the original albums had Josephine up front. It's only in the last 2 years that I started using my male voice, and I started using mics like this one, which is like a 512 audio, really good mic. And then I use
Mm.
this company called Use Microphones. They make these analog preamps that I used on that particular song. I used like a studio electronics mic with a analog preamp called a launcher, and it made me feel confident to use my male voice. as I started
Mm.
using this type of equipment, and then I started, like, exploring what I could do with my male voice versus my Josephine Electric voice, and then they got songs like that. I was kinda channeling a little bit of Michael Stipe type of REM type of singing in that song because I do like REM a lot. But then I had, like, an industrial beat coming off of my Moog DFAM, and DFAM is a machine called a drummer from another mother.
Oh,
That's actually what
wow.
it's called. That's what it's called. Because, like, Moog made these series of synthesizers that we call Mother 32, Drummer from Another Mother, and then
Mm.
Grandmother. And so they called them all mothers, right? They all for some reason, that was their
Wow.
aesthetic. And so the DFAM is really unique, in that it creates these kind of really industrial sounds, but it doesn't sound like an 808, and it doesn't sound like a 909 or a 727 or a CR78. Those are a bunch of Roland drum machines. It has a unique sound. And so I have
Mm.
access to a lot of Roland drum machines because I have a bunch of Roland stuff. So I can do CR78s, I can do 909s, I can do 808s. Um, but a
Weird.
lot of times I like using the DFAM because the DFAM is the cool thing about it. It has a restriction. It doesn't have MIDI. It
Mm.
only
Oh, really?
can use like a quarter inch into a multi-track. It doesn't have any way to bring it into a DAW unless you get a CV to MIDI converter, which I do have.
Mm.
But, it also is limited in what it can do. It can only do 8 steps at a time, which most drum machines can do way more than that. And you say, "Well, why would I pay any money for something that can only do 8 steps?" But the thing about it is over time, I've learned how to manipulate what it can do because on the DFAM, it has this big patch bay of all these things you can override. So even though it
Mm.
has 8 steps, you can go and make it do different things by introducing, like, low frequency oscillators, so every time it goes through the 8 steps, it does something different on a step. So then that
Oh,
makes it
wow.
feel like it's different, right? And you can actually have, random voltage generators trigger stuff. I have a sampler, and I can take the rhythm in my Eurorack sampler. I could take a rhythm and have that rhythm drive the DFAM. Now it'll go
Mm.
through and do 8 steps, but every time it goes through, it will do something different because I might be taking a 3-minute rhythm sample to drive through controlled voltage what that drum machine's gonna do. And so by figuring out how to take the limitations and take advantage of it, it's kinda like this is where my IT head comes in, was like, "Oh, I can
Yep.
take the machine and make it do strange stuff." And the cool thing about it is I don't have to pay for the beat. I can just use
Mm.
all this, like, knowledge of how subtractive synthesis works and how these machines work, and then apply kinda this feel and heart and what I feel at the moment, and a lot of these machines, the way you use them is you put all your recorder on and you just record the whole session, and then you go
Oh.
back in, and then you might edit where you move things, then I can resample my own stuff. So I might do, like, an hour jam session, record it all onto like my masters. And then the cool thing about a lot of my equipment is my equipment has the ability that every input can get its own stem. So I have
Mm.
mixers that can do 16 to 24 tracks. And even if I had a bunch of things all happening at once, they all get their own track. So when I go back
Wow.
and listen to it, I can go and bring it into like I have a touch screen on one of my mixers where it allows me to do, like, DAW-like behavior. I can actually go in and see this grid of everything I just put down, and then I say, "Hey, 2 minutes into it, this is really the hook, or this really should be the intro," and I can take my finger and then move it on my mixer to the beginning just like in a DAW, but it's right
That's interesting.
but
I
it's,
didn't
like,
even know that.
it's right at my instrument, right? So I use this machine called a R20 that has a touchscreen multi-track that allows me right at my instruments to make those decisions, so I'm not at the computer, I'm at right next to my keyboards. So when I
Mm.
go to write something, because 'cause I'm next to my Moogs or my Rolands, I say, "Oh, you know what? I need to replay this bass line," or this gives me an idea to add another bass line on top of something I did, and so because I'm right there, I don't have to go and try to do it on the grid. I can just go on my keyboard or multiple keyboards that I have and just make decisions right there. And I've always liked the ability, kind of like in the 70s, if you think about going into a recording studio, if you had everything set up and somebody's on the mixing board, people could just, like the Beatles and all these bands like, cream, they would just try things and put it down, and recording engineers say, "Oh, yeah, put that down, put that down, put that down." That's what I can do. I can kinda do like a 1970s type of workflow,
That's
which I
amazing.
find more productive for my process, but that's the way I am.
That's amazing. I mean, that's good. I think you have a whole setup and a process the way you do things, which I think is can make your art even better because at this point you're doing it. It's like you're putting these pieces together your own way. It's really interesting. So, what has AI impacted? Like, has AI like motivated your work more, or have you got into artificial intelligence? Like all the new
Uh,
softwares out, especially for
oh,
music too. I think there's.
yeah, well, some of what I can do is some of my machines have artificial intelligence. Well, a lot of my machines are doing like kind of old school random voltage and random type of generator. I use LFOs or envelopes or different things to trigger things. So I'm kind of old school where I like to use the kind of nature of my machines to do it. I kind of do machine-based randomness, right? So
Oh wow.
AI will go and randomly pick things, but I have machines that are based on 60s, 70s technology that can do randomization, but do it with like analog circuitry. Right, so,
Wow.
so it's not doing informed stuff. The cool thing is, like, some of the new Rolands have these things called intelligent arpeggiators or intelligent, accompaniment systems that okay, so you on a modern Juno or modern Jupiter from Roland, you can go in and start playing, turn on the intelligent arpeggiator, and it actually will figure out what drum would go with that. And as you
Wow.
play, it will change. It's not like Casio. It's not like just doing the same thing. It actually starts putting in drums that match your chords and match your treble hand. And then you
Mm.
can actually go and say, "Well, add a bass line," and it will put a bass line that matches the structure of your song. And it will start to add all these parts that are
Well, I might have
intelligent.
needed that for whiskey. What is it? Trying to get the tempo and all this stuff right. Like that song was, and it's crazy because I figured out the tempo was 120, and then I started messing around with it, because it was like I think there was an intimidation from losing a doll system for years for me, but then I kind of was like, no, I got to sit down and figure this out. I can't just record. I want to learn how to
Mm,
make beats because I have these songs in my head. I don't know the technical jargon for some of this
mm.
music stuff, but
Yeah, yeah.
it's just in my head. Like I'll hear a beat in my head and I can hear it when I write a song, and it's different from when I write a song to another artist. I mean to another beat. So I think yeah, so that's one of the things.
Well, that type of tech is really cool on the Rolands. There's other companies that do similar stuff, but Roland has been really big about taking this kind of intelligent arpeggiator kind of technology. I mean, I saw some thing where I think part of the problem with some of this AI is there was this DJ, and I won't name him, but he actually went and took Eminem's voice and had the AI say that he loved trance. Now, Eminem never said that, but he
Oh
went
yeah.
and then he went and had him say it. Now, I potentially as an artist, I might not agree with that because what if Eminem doesn't agree with what you had him say?
Yeah,
And then
that's
you
not
put
good.
that into a song, and just because you can do it, maybe you should get clearance before you do that. And I think
Mhm.
this is where some people could like they could take like the essence of another artist without permission and then
Yeah,
inject it
that's
into your song and then their song and then not pay the original musician.
yeah, that's been a big concern with AI right now, like just stealing art or, just they feel like they're taking away the authenticity from the artist. I mean, I do believe in more, forward mobility because that's important to me. Like, I'm a technologist too. Like it's a part of my life and I
Mhm.
just feel like we have to move forward too, but it has to be a way to whereas it can work in both ways. But
I think you gotta I don't disagree that you can have it, but I think people should
yeah,
get paid if you use it.
they should. I agree on that. And the
You know,
NFTs, they have a good way, like, if you I don't know if you did a music NFT yet, but I
I
I
haven't yeah,
I
I'm
did.
working on it. I'm working on it.
You should because NFTs, like, it's easier. You're in the blockchain, so it's, like, harder for people to steal your stuff. I mean, of course, if they steal it from your wallet, then you're in trouble, but if you gotta protect your wallet. But
Mhm.
I think it's a good thing for artists as well, another stream of income to where
Oh,
it's,
yeah.
and of course, it's still promotion involved, don't get me wrong. Like I
Mhm.
always feel like artists should, if you're trying to do this full time, you should learn marketing because that's one of the things that's important. Because what do we need record labels for? It's just their resources, the marketing, the money. Really, they're like a bank. So, but if you're already doing your own thing, you could just be independent and
Definitely,
push your
yeah.
own music. So even if the label might not like this music or they might not like, that artist's music, but it doesn't matter because you are independent now. We're in a good situation right now. We can just put out anything we want, and if you learn marketing, then you can make some money. The streaming side, like I mean, what are your thoughts on like the streaming royalties and what's going on with that? Because I know a lot of people are upset they're not
Well, I'm
making
kinda upset that one of the problems, I'm a podcaster, my podcasting royalties are way higher than my music.
what now. You know what? That's true. Let me not act like I don't know that. Let me not act like I don't know that because I
And the
just thought
problem
about it.
and the problem I have, when you're on a Spotify platform and you just name check the guy like Rogan, right? Rogan, that's fine, he's getting all that money. But that's
Yeah.
a music platform, and they're getting a lion's share, they're giving all that money to a podcaster, right? And I'm like,
Mhm.
I'm a podcaster too, but I'm like, why is all that money going to the podcaster when music ever since Napster has gotten devalued? People
Yes.
don't seem to appreciate, a YouTuber could get a tip or like a $20 tip, but getting somebody to pay $20 for music,
No,
nobody wants
forget
to
about
do it.
it.
And
No.
that's because of the devaluation of music. And I have an issue
Yeah.
when a music platform is paying a podcaster more than a musician. And a lot of musicians have that issue. I mean, Neil Young had that issue. There's a
Yeah.
bunch of them that have that issue because I think it doesn't seem that you care about the arts if that's what you're going to do. You need to make sure that musicians can actually create and not just the top tier who are doing
Mhm.
billions of streams get all the money, right? You need
Yeah.
to make it so independent artists can actually make money. So you need
Yeah.
to be able to monetize and to offer ways to get their music into films and merchandising, and they should be at the front of that, not
They
at the
should.
back of that, not making the artist responsible for all that. They should be assisting. They should be helping,
Yeah. I
you
just
know,
feel
it,
like when
yeah, in my opinion. But
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I just feel like they should put art on a higher pedestal because I feel like, for instance, tech is up here. You talk about tech, it's like people are like, "Whoa!" You say do music, they're like, "Okay, yeah, all right."
yeah, yeah.
That's a non-artist, right? Some non-artists. It's like, come on, they're both equally important.
Mhm.
Because music is an asset, and I don't think people understand that.
Yeah,
So,
because, I mean, a guy like Dashy, I love watching Dashy. But he can make a lot of money where musicians are struggling, where they used to be able to, make money. And now it's like even back in the day, you were getting 10 cents from an $8 album, right? So
mm,
you're always getting a crappy rate. Back in the
yeah,
day, even the Beatles got a crappy rate, but they sold millions of records. So it's like the thing is, like now the rate is like what, 0.0506 of a penny per stream.
yeah,
You
yeah.
gotta do billions of streams to make money, and the only way you really make money is on tours and merchandising and licensing for movies and films and
Yep.
things like that. So that's what I've been working on. I mean, my Instagram reels make me more money than my Spotify money.
Oh, you did they get
Right.
you too? Because they had
I'm
gave
I'm
me I
monetized.
had made
I'm
like
monetized.
$50 one time from Instagram Reel. They told me, and I'm like, "Well, can I do this every day?" They won't let me do it every day though. I don't know.
Oh, I did get on Facebook, they got mad at me and said I repeated something of myself, but I really don't think I did. But on
Oh,
Reels, I'm still good, and I'm in the star program on Facebook so I can get stars. So,
oh wow.
I started getting monetized, and my Instagram channel, I can do subscriptions. So, I mean, that's how we can make money. Like, if I have people
Yeah.
subscribe, I can make more money than my music. If I get people to give me stars, I make more money than my music. If I get my Reels can make more money than my music. And
Wow.
right now, I'm, through podcasting, I'm making higher royalty rates through my podcast and through like influencer deals that I get. I'm sponsored by like Newsly. I'm a featured podcast
Oh,
on Newsly. So,
neat.
I
That's
get things like that. But it's just disappointing that like an album like Trash
yeah.
Wave is not making me the money that my reels from Trash Wave, though it's the same music. Like I do a reel from Trash Wave, it will make more money than the song. Now, if the reel is a video version of one of the songs, and I go and I spend a lot of time making videos of all my music. Most of my songs I have videos for.
And the
I have
videos, is
so
it like a, like, what type of videos do you do? Is like a cartoon video? I know I've seen, like, the audiogram. Is it like a what type of
well,
videos do you
I do, like, if you see my Instagram, if you check them, like, there's a lot of videos
Oh, my
besides
phone's going.
and, a lot of them are created with a style that is kinda like my expansive sound style. I take multiple iPhone apps, like EFKT, Video Leap, Animoto. I'll take I have a bunch of webcams. I have my
Wow.
iPhones, and I will take film of me playing, or I'll take film of me outside, or film a lot of original stuff. I bring that film into my all these apps. I'll bring it into one of these apps, and then I'll use a bunch of filters and tools on those apps. Then I'll bring my music into that video leap and make it the soundtrack to the video. And then I'll layer it with maybe 4 different passes of multiple apps that throw tons of
Wow.
different things in, and it becomes kind of just kind of a lot of the videos don't actually tell the story, but they're kinda like psychedelic. They're like very,
Oh, I
uh,
think I've seen it.
they're
Okay, now I
they're
remember. I seen one of
they're
your videos. I
yeah,
remember now.
they're very visual, and they don't actually tell the story, but they have a lot of weird visual thing cues in them, and I can use them, and they actually work as a, I get income from the reels and the
What?
stars and stuff
I
I
might
do
have to
for
be
them.
a little bit more aggressive with my reels because it's crazy. It only paid me $50 for like 5 reels they put me on. And then I was like, well, can I do this every day? And they didn't, I don't know why it didn't show up the next day that I could do it again. So
Oh,
I don't know how that works, but I guess it depends on how good the reel did. But I wasn't
yeah,
really taking, yeah.
I just would start putting them up, like, I just schedule I do, like, try to do 4 or 5 a day, and the thing is I have a big catalog of stuff going back to 2016.
Yeah, you have a lot of
So I
songs,
have
and
a
it's
lot of
inspiring
stuff.
as I don't know what. Like,
I
you're getting me like, I'm sitting here like, I gotta get to it. That's why I'm working so like, you just motivate me, man, because I wanna do I my goal is to do it 1 song a week. That's what I wanna do, you know? Because I got so much songs in my head. I can watch a movie and come up with a song. I can it's just crazy, like,
Well, I think
you
what
know?
helps is if you see all those instruments behind me, this is in my bedroom. So I made
Oh,
it so all this stuff is, like, right next to me, right? And since I've been, was 17, I was always really into having playing. I started on wind instruments, and then I realized I couldn't really write on those. There you can, I did write, like,
mhm.
jazz songs. But then I
Okay.
said, "Well, I wanna be able to do better." So I started buying synthesizers and sequencers and multi-tracks, and I always had them in my bedroom. And, I just because I have access to them, then you use them. And so it's like, if you have to go to the studio, but if your studio is, like, right in your house
It's
and
right in
you
my room. That's the
yeah,
crazy thing. My studio, I have so this is crazy. I have 2 stations. So, I have a tech station, which is I call it the tech station where I do my podcasting, I do my IT work because I work from home. So,
mhm, me
it's
too.
in one station. I know we just I knew it's funny because I kinda thought you was in IT, like, something told me, I said, "This guy might be in IT." But I didn't ask because I didn't wanna pry and be like, "What's your job?" You know? But
Yeah, yeah.
but now I know that my intuition was
BSA. I'm a
right.
BSA, the acronym BSA, if you know what that is, that's what I am.
BSA, okay.
Yeah, business system analyst.
Oh, that's a good whoa. That's a good one. Actually, I like that one because I'm an application engineer and it's cool. It's like API, pulling API, which that's another thing you can make a lot of money from on the side if someone was trying to do
Yeah.
that. But business systems analyst is that's pretty big. That's good.
Yeah, it's a career level job. So I've always told people, like, my day job is as an artist is probably not what you would expect. It's a career level professional position I've been doing for many years, and I work with, like, big Fortune 500 companies. I actually design policy administration systems for insurance companies, right?
That's what?
So
That's a
so
big
that
deal.
is very stable, and it's pretty good money.
And do you feel like it's like your record deal? Because I always said tech became my record deal.
Yeah,
Like
well,
it's
that's
not
what funds my stuff.
$1 million, but
It funds
it
my stuff.
yeah, they're not giving but even the record labels aren't giving $1 million anymore like they used to. Like
Yeah, yeah,
it's some tech people that I've met make up to 300,000, 40,000 a year. Some depends on what you're doing.
yeah.
So it's
Yeah,
a lot of money in tech.
I'm not hitting that. I'm in 6 figures,
No,
but
me neither.
I'm not hitting the 200. I'm in the, like, the mid-range.
I would
Like,
love
6
to hit
figure, but under
300.
200,
Well, look,
um
that's good money though, man.
It's not
That's
bad. I mean, that's how I got all this tech.
That's how you get to do all this stuff. That's the same thing with me. Like, and that's the thing. Like, can't you? Do you agree that two things can be true at the same time? Like, someone could have a job in tech, but still be fully into music or entrepreneurship. Like,
That's what a lot of
it's
the guys I know, a lot of the synthesists I know are IT guys. You know, a lot of the guy. If I find another guy with a Moog, he's usually an IT guy, right? Because to understand a
yeah.
Moog, you typically got to be if you any synth that you is not just presets and you actually are programming it. Most of the
Mhm,
guys I've run into and the women I've run into that do this
mhm.
actually are tech because the only way they know how to use it is because they from it. Because if somebody's not tech, they're like, I don't know what to do with all these dials and all these buttons. It's
Yeah,
like I
yeah.
actually, I know how to wire my stuff. My stuff. I can. The cool stuff about the thing about why I like my stuff that's like the non-digital world because I'm in a digital world every day, and
Yeah.
I kind of backed into the analog because my synths actually have wires that you can rewire the whole freaking thing. The whole idea of these old 70 cents, they have this idea called controlled voltage. So on these synths have patch bays that allow you to override the workflow of the whole synth, which I find
Wow.
really interesting. So I can take it like synthesizer workflow goes from left to right, from like the filter down to the amps and the envelopes. It follows like a left to right structure. But these synthesizers, when they built them, when Robert Moog built them and this guy Dick Buchla in San Francisco, they came up with these ideas and said, well, what if what if the main workflow is not optimum? Why don't I allow people to override my workflow? And so they created these patch bays that allow you to take wires and change the way the system works. You can actually
Mm,
like a telephone operator taking taking a switch, you can actually change where that signal goes. You can jump steps. You can go backward steps. So you can go make it do what it wasn't designed to do. And I find that fascinating being in an IT. And then it creates really that's why I call my stuff expansive sound experiments because I feel like I'm a scientist
yes,
rearranging
you
these synths
are.
to do what they're doing.
Yeah, I mean that's crazy, man. That's amazing because it's so many ways to do this, and it's like that. And I could hear the scientists in your music when I listen to all your different songs. I was like, yo, this is cool. And I remember when you were working on whiskey and you put it on, you created this track for it. I was like, it was like cool. I was like, this is so different. But then I was scared of it because I was like, well, I know I'm not singing on
It's very
the
different.
key. And I said, well, how would people go about this? And it wasn't so much about the people, but so much as I wasn't used to it. I was like, how,
Mhm.
and then but I still think it was kind of cool at the same time. Like, her B Jork, like
Yeah,
someone one time
yeah, it's
compared me
very
to
experimental.
B Jork.
Yeah,
And I don't
yeah,
know
with
if I'm
Jorg, yeah,
similar to
yeah,
B
Jorg.
Jork too much, but I don't think but I do like B Jork. I think she's amazing, and I like how she pushes the envelope too. And I said to myself, I said, I might do something like that. I might do like a test, like release the one that you did on SoundCloud, then release the beat I make up or something like that, and just
Yeah,
have different versions because it's cool to have different versions of a song anyway. Like I always said, I want to start doing that, maybe do some remixes, stuff like that. So just have
yeah,
fun with this.
yeah, because there's a whole style, like, a lot of what I'm into is, like, very experimental, like, bands like Kraftwerk, like, early Prince is like the thing about Prince, he broke the rules all the time. It's like, you think about Dirty
Oh
Mind,
yeah.
and you think about, like, When Doves Cry, I mean, Warner Bros. Didn't wanna put 'cause didn't have a bass line. Same thing with Kiss, they said it was a demo. They kept on challenging him, and a lot of his stuff was not what people were doing. His stuff was
Mm.
not following the normal process. He had things without bass lines. We had things that were very demo-like, and you have to, give it to him that he had his vision, and a lot of stuff, like, I'm into, like, the Velvet Underground or, like, Crazy Horse or, like, Yellow Magic Orchestra. I like a lot of experimental stuff, and then when you get into experimental music, a lot of times they play with polyrhythms, they play with dissonance, they play with different timing changes. So there is a school of like advanced to like modular synthesis where people are doing a lot of stuff that's very discordant, kind of like fusion jazz. If you listen to like Miles Davis when the band goes off and then they come back,
Mhm.
jazz has a lot of points in it where you go off the beat
You
and
know
then
what?
you come. you come
I just
back.
thought about that. That's true.
Yeah,
That's
so you
true.
can make that work. You might have to work on it more, but there's a lot of music that purposely goes off key or goes off beat. But today we live in a kind of so beat focused world, people have forgotten that you have the freedom to do that.
Yes, and that's the thing about being independent is that, versus being with a record label, which we've heard stories, there's times in my 20s almost got with a record label. Like, have you ever been through an experience with a record label and them
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
mold
I
you?
I I actually been on a couple labels, and a label's coming after me again. But
That's so good.
the experience I had was the 3 labels I went on, I did better than them. Like, my independent Phantom Electric Ghost albums I've been putting out since 2016. In a lot of cases, I actually had more plays on my own projects than the 3 labels I went to who told me they were gonna do a better job than me, and they didn't. And so
Dang.
there's one of them that came back to me, and I'm like, "Wait, I did 3 songs with you." And they just came back to me like last week and they said, "Oh, we really love your stuff. We worked with you before. We want to do it again." So my problem is you guys told me you were going to do this and you never did it. I gave you the
Mm,
music. You said this. I did everything you told me to do. I actually did better on my own albums that I totally did independently. And so my problem with them is like, if you're going to tell me you're going to do it, I said, if you want me to come and do one song with you, because I write so many songs, like, yeah, I can give you one song
mhm.
'cause I have so many songs. I got 2 more albums scheduled for this year that I already finished. But it's like so it's like
Dang.
I have a song I could give them, and they have a song they want me to give them. But my thing is, like, you give me a plan on how you're gonna
Yes.
sell get this 100,000 plays or get this on a play. Show me what you're gonna do. If you can't show me that, I'm not doing it. And
Yeah, that makes sense.
so it's like, 'cause now I get labels that do come after me. They're small indie labels. And I work with this Swedish label. We did this album, Family Electric Goes to EP, and they actually got me some good press. They got me like a review
Oh,
of
neat.
one of my songs, and we got compared to like Trent Reznor and Pretty Hate Machine and stuff. So we got some good press, but we got some pretty good numbers. We got like maybe 40,000 plays, which
Wow,
was
that's good.
was not bad, but you need like a million plays. So I mean,
Yeah, you do need a million now.
so they did pretty good, and then I've actually hit like 70, 80,000 plays on some of my stuff I did myself. So my whole thing with them is like, you guys did good, but you told me you do better than me, and I've have been able to do more plays by myself than what you did. So
Dang.
that the problem I have is like you gotta show me.
I know
It's
that's right. You know what? That's true. And then also, you want to make sure because a lot of them try to take your publishing and stuff. So, and I know, some artists they're just so anxious to do stuff that they don't look at these contracts to get a proper lawyer because you don't want to be famous and then have no money, or look, you know what I mean? So, and it, because all the work you put in, all the time you put in. So it is important for artists to just make sure the plan is copacetic, make sure it goes with what you're trying to do. Like that's my advice to independent artists.
That's why, like, a lot of my best music is, like, been self-released, and the thing is, like, I did give good music to these labels, like, the biggest thing I was on this one label for, like, a year, and we did a single, like, 2 singles, like, every month for, like, a year,
Mm,
and, they just didn't really get any traction with them, and they said they were gonna do this and that, and I gave them really good stuff, and I did hold
mm.
off on a bunch of stuff, so I had at the same time I was giving them a bunch of stuff, I went and built an album that once the contract was over, it was gonna go a year. I had my own set of stuff that I was saving for that record,
Mm.
but I still felt like I was putting out good material, some really good stuff from that time period. And so I just try to put the good effort in. I didn't try to give them substandard material, but a lot of what you do is like I just write so much that from time to time I can afford to give a chance. But I usually only give them that one company I gave them a lot of songs. I gave them like 24 songs. But, in
Wow.
my catalog, I've got thousands of songs, so 24 wasn't a thing.
Dang. You'll do good on Broad Jam then, Broad Jam where you can submit for movies and TV shows and
Yeah,
video games.
I just started looking at that. I had some problems with their interface for some reason, it wasn't working for me, but
Oh
I gotta
goodness.
play with it.
Yeah, it's a really good site. You can submit to so many songs. I mean, submit to so many movies and TV shows. I submit too, but I need more music. Actually, I don't have a bigger. I need a bigger catalog because I only got
Yeah,
like
I
what
gotta
four. I only
focus
got
on
like
that.
14 songs that I've ever done, and that's ridiculous because I have way more songs in my head. Like I got so
Well, I
many
think
things
what
I
you
can
gotta
do.
do, like a lot of times when I tell people, like I've talked to artists and I've interviewed like 350 artists, but a lot of people will have hundreds of songs in their back catalog, and then they'll put out like two or three of them and put them together, or put 10 of them together. And what I try to tell people is like, you're not always the best person to decide what should actually go out, right? So a
Mm,
lot of times musicians
true.
actually don't pick the right song. Right, so a lot
Yeah.
of times it's good to come at a strategy where you have Twitch and you have where you have all these, all the TikToks and all these, like, shorts and all these reels. Since there's so many places you can send stuff now, that
Mm,
it's not a bad idea to kinda do it, like, throw the fly on the wall and then see what sticks, because kinda Prince was in that mode where he was writing all the time, and he was putting so much material out, and he still had stuff he couldn't get out. But the idea to me is like don't you don't always know what the fans are gonna like. You might think you know, and a lot of times when you ask artists I've seen lots of interviews that they actually picked the wrong song, that A&R people picked a better song than they did.
oh,
Like
what?
a
That's
lot of
shocking.
bands actually, on their albums, they didn't pick the songs that the A&R people picked that actually worked. The songs
Mm,
they liked didn't weren't the songs the fans liked. And so that tells
wow.
you sometimes that maybe in this world where you are independent, that maybe you should release as much as you can, because you don't always have a good idea yourself of what's going to work, and let your fans kind of decide what works.
Yeah, and I agree on that one. And enjoying the journey and just keep putting it out and having a good time at the same time. Because that's important. Keep a positive attitude about it, and don't compare yourself to anyone else because this is it's you. It's you against yourself. You're getting better as you grow because the more you record and the more you do things, you just grow and you get better. And it's just amazing. But before we wrap this up, I wanna ask you, what's your favorite quote or saying that you go by?
Well, there was this quote from Moog, where he felt like his synthesizers have some kind of consciousness, and that you can tap into it and have this like unlimited playground to work with. And I thought that was really interesting. It's interesting that a inventor who built a machine is talking about kind of a muse. He's talking about this
Wow.
cosmic thing that usually would be considered kind of like, oh, that's kind of hippie like, that's kind of like esoteric. And why would somebody who's a scientist, an engineer, a doctor, Dr. Robert Moog, an electrical engineer PhD, is saying that he felt that when he built the Moogs, they were had a connection to something that was higher than like mechanical. They actually had a consciousness. And I
Oh,
thought that that was really cool, and I've kind of
I
felt
believe that.
that, I tap into it when I use those synths. I can feel that they actually have, like, character, that if I don't try to tame them, if I
Mm,
let them be what they are, I let them kinda tell me what I'm gonna write. And if I
oh,
let go of trying to control them, then I do
mhm.
better as a musician.
I love that. So that's a good question though. Do you feel like music is spiritual? Do you feel
Very
like there's
much.
frequencies and then you feel this energy? Because sometimes you're drawn to do something, you get this idea, and I definitely feel like our ancestors do work through us and it's just certain things. And you'd be like, well, how did I come this not it might not be your story. You just create this song. You're like, how did I come up with that? It was from
Yeah, we
I feel like our
channel.
ancestors work through us and we channel through
Yeah,
channel through these things.
we channel the universe, we channel every experience you ever had or are going through as a musician, all your influences, all your spirituality, all your emotions. And the best music is the kind of heart soul music, right? Because when you get a song that universally connects, it's because somebody tapped into what, like Pete Townsend said, there was this thing called a universal key, right? And
Mm,
he's in the Who, but he felt like, okay, there's this universal key, and as a musician, I'm trying to reach for this universal key that's going to actually And it's not one single note. It's just this like idea that's gonna connect with people. So if I hit these universal keys, people are gonna vibe with what I do. And I think that's what
Wow.
happens when you see a musician and a big festival crowd all like vibe into the same to these
Yep.
frequencies is because you hit that universal key. And when you
Mm.
hit that, that people respond to it and there's a universal understanding no matter what language it is, because you hit that note and that note is like is in the universe and it actually triggers certain behavior and certain feelings.
Wow, I love that. I love that. Yeah, speaking of performing, are you got any shows coming up or do you perform
I've been
locally?
I'm focusing right now primarily on online shows. I do online performances usually every other week or weekly when I can. I actually do online rehearsals that turn into concerts. Basically, I do on Facebook, my YouTube channels. There's like many of them out there. I'm probably gonna go live this weekend sometime. I won't know when I'm gonna do it. I kind of do it when I feel like it. But
Mm,
when I get the kind of, I will definitely be live this weekend on my YouTube channel, which is forward
nice.
slash at Fam Electric Ghost. At some point, I'll go live and I usually will play like an hour, brand new material.
Mm.
And
Oh,
that's what I do. And eventually, you know, we have played in New York and Boston, but we're not ready to do that in this environment so far. But eventually, we will go back to doing those live shows that we used to do in 2017, 2018. But
mm.
for now, we're just all online in support of like Trash Wave.
Hey,
And
that's still
the next
good. Hey,
album
still getting out
the
there.
next and the next album is Josephine Electric. We're actually doing an album called titled Josephine Electric. It's all her voice, every song that comes out in March.
Wow. That's exciting. I'm so congratulations on all the success, man. You should have yourself a glass of wine for all this success that you got going on. And also the reels and stuff. That's good information for artists that are listening that need to figure out how to market. That's actually a good idea. I actually need to do that. I'm just I kind of just I should be doing that myself because I'm the techie person. I know how to create this stuff. I just don't do it. But that was you put a little fire in me to go ahead and start doing that. So that's good. And
We should have you on our podcast again whenever you want to. But yeah.
yeah.
Well, the other leg of what we do is this podcast where we interview like emerging and independent artists all over the world, and we've been doing very well with the podcast. Is actually, you know, but you know, people say, "Oh, are you doing the podcast going to interfere with the music?" It's like, well, we've got
Why
three
do
albums
people do
scheduled
that though?
for this year, so I don't
Why do
think it did
people
it.
but why do people think that? I'm trying to understand because it seems like different people are getting this, but it's like why do people think that three things, four things can't be true at the same time? Like there's time to do stuff. Like if you schedule your stuff out, you can do a podcast for an hour. You say this is on this 2 days or 3 days a week. I'm doing this podcast for an hour. Then after that, you can say after that I'm working on this for an hour. Like why doesn't nobody get that? But if you tell someone I'm watching TV all night, they get that. But if you
Yeah,
say, oh,
yeah, but
like
but they, you know, people who are creative tend to be kind of creative and like, you know, in a very dynamic way, and I found that I just have a lot to do, and what
yeah,
happens is like, okay, if I'm working on a song, if all I did was work on songs, I'd be like playing all day, and then I'm gonna get burned out. So the
yeah,
podcast kind of interrupts and gives me a break in my creative process, so I can go back to it.
mhm,
And then everybody, I think, when you're a creative person, it's good to kind of take a break. And because
yes,
I have these scheduled breaks to do podcasting, and then the other thing about the podcast, it people go and say, "Well, who's that Peg? Who's Phantom? Who's Keith? Who's this?" Right? And then they check out. Oh, not only does he have a podcast, he has this catalog of all these songs. And then every time I do a podcast, people go through my catalog, and I get people listening to my music. So it's better than a bot. It's better than like a lot. It actually sends people into my channels. And so
see,
I found that just being out there as Peg, as Phantom, I get traffic into my channels because I'm constantly engaging. And so, and then
yes,
I get connections like you, like I get to work with people like you. I actually had an artist yesterday said they were vibing on what I was doing. Now they wanted to do something. And I
wow,
collaborate a lot. You know, I'm in the middle of a bunch of collaborations right now,
that's
one with a
amazing.
Japanese producer
Oh,
and some other producers that just like dig what I'm doing. And because I put it out there, things happen. You know, so my whole thing is like don't like keep it to yourself too long. Like if you're an artist, like throw it out there, put it on SoundCloud, put it on YouTube. You'd be surprised what happens.
Yes, yes, and I love it, and that's why I continue. That's why I tell people just put it out there, get a distribution company, get with one of these distribution companies, because I'm with United Masters. I like it; it's pretty cool, and just push, just have a good time with it. Don't think so much on the outcome and what people. Just put it out there and have fun, because this is what life is about. That's what we do. So I want to thank everybody for. Oh, wait a minute! Before we go, can you tell everybody where to follow you, find your music at? Like,
Yeah, yeah.
I mean,
So
I'm gonna
we
put in
have
the
a
show notes too, but
well, we have our website, famelectricghost.com. But you can find us on Spotify, you can find us on Apple, you can find us on Amazon. We do like it if you go to Apple Music or iTunes or Amazon and actually purchase it there. But we know people don't do that. So we're on all the platforms. You just type in Family Electric Ghost, but we understand like on Apple and Spotify, there you'll find the podcast, but there's also the profile for the music. So you'll find both profiles and you can choose which ones you want. If you're more into podcast, you can watch our podcast. If you're into music, you can check out our music.
love it. All right, everybody, you heard it. And thanks for tuning in. I want to say if you're anybody out there dating, this is the month of Valentine's Day. Go check out my card game, Dating Assassins card game. Go and cop it because it is the bomb and it will help you get to know that person that you're either trying to get to know or that you're currently with. Because dating is tough, y'all. So that's my little plug in there. So go ahead, go datingassassins.com, y'all. And thanks for tuning in. Please subscribe and share. Thanks. Peace.
Thank you.